This is another episode of Salty Talk. I have my two besties with me today. I am super
Heyo.
duper excited. Um, Time with you guys is just never ever wasted. So thank you again for being a part of Salty Talk. I just love you more than I can say. So I have with me today Mr. Jerome Parker. Yay, snaps for Jerome.
What
And I
the?
have the lovely, lovely Erica Flora. How are you,
Oh,
friend?
geez, Louise. Jerome, you
Jeez
go
Louise.
first.
All right.
Oh, wow. Okay,
What up with
I'll go
you,
first.
friend? Tell me everything.
Well, I've been hearing that a lot of the country is dealing with cold weather and snow and storms. And so, because I'm a compassionate person who is not currently experiencing compassion fatigue, I'm wearing a warm sweater.
Even
But
though
it's
it's
actually,
900 degrees in Arizona.
yeah, it's 78 today in Phoenix,
Oh,
Arizona. So,
What a bummer.
yeah, I know it's really rough. But other than that, I had this really cool opportunity in one of the schools that we work with. There's a eighth grader whose dad is not in his life, and we're kind of just like mentoring him, walking with him, just loving on him, really in a really organic way. So one day he's like, "Do you think you could teach me how to shave?" I was like, "What?"
aw.
Yes. So we took like shaving cream and razors and like a big water thing because there wasn't running water in the classroom where he was at. And I just taught him how to shave and like he's got this little eighth grade face and he's shaving, going with the
Oh,
grain, and it was just
Did he have any hairs on it at all?
none, like
stop it.
zero. And he's like, I don't want to get right here because I don't want to mess up my
Oh, yeah.
mustache. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, it doesn't exist, but we'll go with that. Yeah, let's
Jerome,
just
he'll
do your
never
beard.
forget that. He'll never
Yeah,
forget
Ever.
that moment.
that is
I
a
won't ever
forever
forget
moment.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it
That is
was just a
awesome.
super cool moment of just one of the awesome things that we get to do.
Oh, love
Love
that.
it. Love
What
it.
about you, E? What's going on with you?
It rained a little bit in California, which we all like hold our
Ooh.
breath because that never happens.
Mm.
But man, life is crazy all the time, right? With being in the roles that we're in. But if you add the layer of you've got a disaster that just happened locally and you're trying to juggle all the things, walking hat rack, we talked about that before of like, how do we help well? And what do we do? In a situation like this, when many of us I've never done it before. And so that's actually why I'm super excited about today's episode because honestly, I feel like I have made some great friends by linking arms with friends at other churches
Mm.
and just responding to this disaster with the LA fires here in the Palisades, as well as Altadena and Pasadena. And so, without further ado, I would like to introduce Paula. And Paula, you can actually introduce yourself, but Paula's from Shepherd Church. So tell us about your role, how long you've been there, what part of California you're in. Help us out.
Yay, Paula.
Welcome, Paula.
Welcome,
Round of
Paula. Yes,
applause.
I'm Paula. I am Director of Community Engagement at Shepherd Church, and my role is community engagement, which includes government engagement, which is just a huge mission field that is often ignored, but super critical. And then all of our compassion, outward-facing ministries. I've been in this role for 2 years. I have been on staff for 30 some years, a long time. A long time. Started as,
Get a girl.
a young girl. Um, but I've done so many things. I mean, I've also like built our buildings single-handedly, by the way, but built our buildings and done those projects and still sort of do those as they come up. But um, this is just where it feels most natural to me. A little less natural right now because of the disaster. I mean, nothing feels like we're ever done or doing it right or, you
Mhm.
know, making correct tread marks. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like
Mm,
we're being as effective and not for any other reason than that the need is so huge and
mhm.
making connections and not fighting with government, but trying to figure out like what that looks like, um, and knowing the church is the best person to care for people,
Mm.
over the government, just a little bit.
I
Um,
love that. The church is the best person to care for people.
Yeah,
That's important for us to remember.
for sure.
so of our two disasters, we have Altadena, Pasadena area, and then we had Palisades. We are kind of right between the two of them and a
Okay.
little north, but like a little bit of a triangle. So, yeah, it's an interesting
So
time for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
what's been your experience with that so far?
I mean, I think it's been amazing having Erica, and the team in the Orange County team is very connected with the churches there. And that's been incredible. But just having the relationship with Erica through this group has just been super helpful. But I wish that the government would understand the importance of the church. And I feel like right now we're all fighting a little bit to be like,
Mm.
Mm,
you guys have this enormous resource and you're not like, we're doing
mm,
stuff, but we could be doing stuff.
Yeah.
mhm,
And I mean, we're doing a cool thing. We're all getting 500 gifts for families, and they've been interviewed about
mhm,
basically what would make you feel like yourself, what would make you feel not it's not a need necessarily, but it could be, but that you've missed because you have nothing. Um,
mhm,
and so we filled that as 500 orders. We divided it up. We're all about 150 orders a piece. And
mhm,
that's really cool. Um, and that's really fun. But
mhm,
we could be on the front lines. I mean, Red Cross Federal
Mm.
came in, National came in, and then pushed all of the ministries out of their shelters. Um,
mhm,
because that's just how they go. That's just how they roll. And
mhm,
so I think that's a part that's no, the word's not disappointing. It's exactly what I would expect. However,
mhm,
it's sad because our ability to
mhm,
minister people, touch people's lives, and be here when they're done doing what they have to do, we're still here doing
mhm,
what we get to do. And
Mm.
mhm,
I think that's been a different, but we've been able to do a lot of things. We clean people's houses, ash
mhm,
outs, just going in and sifting through. We've made sifters, and we're all working on getting into people's homes and doing that. We've been funding people
mhm,
with groceries and just needed items and helping them with rent. And just, I mean, it's just ongoing. There's a lot. People donating cars and trying to connect those with people who need a car.
Mm.
mhm,
So I mean, we're all doing what we can do. Um,
mhm.
but here in Los Angeles, not unlike any place else in the country, the church capacity is huge.
Mm.
And being able to ignite the church and engage the church, I think, would make a big difference in the healing of our city. And our city is in need of
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah. I think it's so hard because I don't know. I know Paula, you experienced, you've shared personally, have you been impacted by kind of a disaster, like you and your husband? I've been in calls with you and you share that. But you guys, I want to brag on Paula because I was like, I think I know someone. Oh yeah, I know Paula at Shepherd. Let's just like text and figure out like what are you doing? Because that's my first thought is who's I'm connected to, even the slightest. Like we've been sitting
Mhm.
next to each other at the conference before. We've been at a round table, or on a call with Community Minister Network. And so um I'm grateful for collaboration and community because I think
Mm.
the way that Paul has talked about responding, she's had such great ideas. And I've just been like, okay, just tell me what you need, like let's figure out how we work together. And Paula is one that will chase down the needs so that she can mobilize people in the way that it's actually needed. And I feel like you have just utilized your connections in your community to say, like, I'm going to call this person, I'm going to reach out. And man, it feels like you've done a good job of laying that groundwork and that foundation, which I think is so vital to the work that we do in a community, disaster or
Mm.
not. So three
My
cheers for Paula.
obnoxious, nagging character.
No, no, listen, I
It
think it's your
Those are the
tenacity
best
and your
characters ever.
consistency.
is.
Yes.
Facts.
It absolutely is. Um, but I mean, obviously you're overstating everything, but I appreciate that. But the thing is that it is important to step back and just say, so God, who is it that I'm missing? I mean, for instance, I was freaked out about this 150 gifts because it's not 150 gifts. Each one
Right.
of those 150 can have 2 to 5 gifts.
Mm.
Correct.
Be bought, sorted, labeled, packaged, wrapped a certain way, and delivered. And
Mhm.
we're all like, this isn't we just the world stopped and we got to get off and do this. Like,
Mhm.
it's not
Right.
how disaster is. So
Yeah.
I was
Mhm.
freaked out. I mean, I left our meeting a week ago last Thursday and I was freaked out. I can't, I don't know
Mm.
where this is going to come from. And God told
Mhm.
me, you could ask me. I have some ideas.
He's all, hey,
I
I'm
can
here. What's up?
Like,
do
Just
it.
tag
hey,
me
You
in.
can do it.
you
You
got the
can do it
guy.
on your own, really. But if you want to
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
me,
yeah.
I have some suggestions that might work. And
Wow.
and to that end, I all of our connections with the Rotary, with Kiwanis,
Mhm.
with some other churches that had reached out, with some other nonprofits that, have not necessarily engaged. I reached out to them and within like literally like 45 minutes had
Mm.
$20,000 and the total amount needed to
Love it.
purchase these things was 22. And so I actually had to stop and
Snaps
pull
for
back.
God right here.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. Only because, he had to remind me he's God, which he has to do a lot. Uh,
I do that too. I am so
Yeah.
guilty of
Same.
that.
my gosh, it's ridiculous.
You mean it's not
Um,
my role? What?
like, why do I have to ask you? Like, you don't know, you're God. Like,
I
seriously,
love it.
can't you just do what you know I'm going to ask you to do later or forget to ask you? But, it's just one of those moments of, I mean, seriously, because God's very, very sassy and salty with
Mhm.
me. Just like you could ask me. I mean, because I do have some ideas. Uh,
Mhm.
and it really was that simple. And just to watch the Rotary be so excited, 7,000 came back later, 14,000.
Mhm.
Mm.
And that was 70 of the 140 that I had to get.
Mhm.
And then AIG came in with another five. I mean, it just was like they were anxious. And part of it is I believe in our roles.
Mhm.
For the most part, people want to do something, they just don't know, but they have to be
Mhm.
asked. Sort of like God made
Mhm.
us ask him, which once again is an incredibly frustrating characteristic of God. I'm just being honest. Super.
Oh
I
my
like
gosh.
the honesty, girl. Bring it. This is the safe place.
But
Yeah.
I do think that that's much how the people of the church are, and even people in the community. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's our way to minister to them, right? Is because they're not people of faith, but we have a shared goal. And right now the city's burning up and they want to do something, but they're sitting there going, we've raised all this money, have no idea what to do with it. Like we have no
Yeah.
idea.
Mm.
Hey,
Um,
Yeah.
Paula, just real quick, I was just thinking of you were talking about some other entities or organizations kind of push churches out, like the Red Cross, or hopefully I got that right. But um, so what do you, I just want to hear your thoughts on this statement. Um, the church has an opportunity or a gap to fill as it relates to being unified, uh, to mobilize to affect change in our communities.
yeah,
And that seems to be like when these big things like happen, like disasters some years ago, COVID,
Mhm.
constant things like homelessness, trafficking, all the things,
well, and
it
even
seems to
racial
expose some of
abuse.
our gaps.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things the Community Minister Network does is help link us so that we
Mhm.
Mhm.
do
Yeah.
have different perspectives.
Yeah.
And I can bring my obnoxious, nagging, never give up bulldogness. Um,
Mhm.
because that's how I'm wired. Um, but part of it is to make sure that we're laying the groundwork, both with this network, but also with the government so that they do know that we are a trusted voice. I mean,
Mhm.
I was on the
Mm.
phone with John Lee, city councilman, and he said, I've got nothing in my district. I said, you are public safety director.
Mhm.
You are over all public safety in LA. Your area is our area. You tell us what you need. And so we were
Mhm.
delivering like baby food and formula and just all over the city, which is what we wanted to do. But if you're not on the end, really on the inside before it happens,
Mhm.
when it
Mhm.
happens, you're just a burden.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. I mean, I used to tell me when I did events, I don't care how great your idea is, you could have the
Mhm.
best solution for this, but the day of
Mhm.
the event, it's about executing a plan. We
Yeah.
can't shift 100 volunteers, right? We
Right.
can't do that. And that's really where they were. And I told our people, we're in surgery because they're all, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And so all of the city people are donating clothes and stuff that ended up in dumpsters
Yeah.
because they needed to do something. But I said, we're in surgery. They don't need us in the operating room right now. I'm just telling you.
Mhm.
They have their systems, they have their plans, they have their resource. They don't want us there. But when
Mhm.
we get recovery, it'll be time for us to engage. But it's super complicated because your people are hungry and they get fatigued too. Like we
Yeah.
keep telling them it's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Mhm.
But the reality is we're going to have to tell them that 1,000 times. Churches are not going to be rebuilding for a year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky between
Yes.
design
Yeah.
and all these other things. And I think our heart too is to get in there and help these churches both rebuild, but reimagine and rethink, not
Mhm.
hit an intersection. I told Erica the other day, when our house was destroyed by the earthquake, my husband, who's an engineer, wanted it rebuilt exactly like it was. I mean, everything exactly like it was, because
Yeah.
that's how he is. I lost it, I want it back. And so navigating through that and making sure he got enough to make himself feel comfortable, and yet I got what I want to do, was an important thing. And I think the churches have that. They're at a
Mhm.
unique intersection, something they never expected. It wasn't something they've been planning for 5 years, which if you guys ever been on like building and design projects, it's complicated, right? I mean, it takes a
Mhm.
long time to envision, what do we want? What are we going to do? And so they haven't had that. So how do we pull back and support them to be able to make the best decisions moving forward? So
Mhm.
there's a lot of components to it, but keeping our people motivated, I think, is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that there's a beauty in what you're doing with helping support other churches to be able to dream and using your expertise. And I feel like you're building your own network in your community. Like we're talking about Community Ministers Network nationwide. Hey, if you're in another country, we'd love to talk to you too. Right now, I think we're in the US, but there's this localized network that's essential when it comes to disasters. And then there's this nationwide network that is so important when like who's on the front lines. Okay, how do we support you from way over here? And I
Right.
think it's like it's been so cool to see churches calling, or hearing Paula say we've got churches from all these places calling and saying what can we do, and we say, hey, here's the list of things we've identified. If you want to help, and we will steward your funds in the ways that we have identified. And the thing that Paula, you said, you asked, well, what do you need? I think that's something we all can take away from this conversation of, instead of us going, oh, okay, they need clothes, they need like that unfortunate reality of all of these things people have given out of their hearts or the back of their closets or whatever.
Mhm.
It can create chaos when we don't stop long enough or have relationships well put in place ahead of time to be able to know who to ask. What do you need?
Mhm.
I feel like in this situation, you see one post that asks for 10 things. I promise you, by the time the Dream Center posts that 2 hours later, they've got more than they could ever ask for. So like, what
Mhm. Yeah.
what are we really doing? How are we organizing ourselves? And Shepherd Church on East Side's been able to partner alongside two other large churches in the area, Mariners and Saddleback, to say, how do we support a church boots on the ground, Victory Bible Church, in the efforts that they are looking to do?
Mhm.
And how do we kind of go, here's what we're good at. We can send people here. We can take this slice of the pie. Can you send volunteers this weekend? Because Paul is saying, I'm focusing on home cleanings. Okay, great. We can support with lunch or balloons or whatever. And so it's been this beautiful kind of, I think, reflection of God's heart. Not that it's like we're perfect, but I get giddy every time I talk to all the churches on the phone. So I'm like, you guys, I don't think I've ever been a part of something like this where four larger churches are actually slowing down. We're talking, even though what
Mhm.
we're doing is a drop in the bucket. it's a big undertaking, this Operation Wish List thing we're doing. It takes a lot of manpower and whatnot. It's in the moment. It's right now. It's not going to fix their housing issue, but it shows the love and the heart of Christ, not just to the people in the community, but to church. Like, hey, we know how to do this. And now we have stories to tell and celebrate of how we've been able to do it, right? Like, Paula's got stuff that was on her list of goals to do in 2025 that she's got to try to accomplish and figure out amongst this situation. And we all have that. But how do we be honest about what we need, what we can do, our capacity, and know that we're just all in this race together? And again, marathon, sprint, there's seasons where it ebbs and flows. Jerome and Becky, I wonder if you have examples of how churches have come together around a scenario in your community, where some of these things may have come to light.
Well, I was going to say, just in general, like that's the importance of this community minister network. We all live in different parts of the country, right? And, we're all going to face these disasters, whether it be fires or tornadoes or droughts or whatever it is. Having those relationships with other community engagement pastors across the country is just so vital to this kind of a conversation when it surrounds this disaster relief conversation. I just love that we're having this. It's churches slowing down. It's the big, the small, the medium, the mediocre, the fast growing. It doesn't matter what kind of a church you are. If we can hold hands together nationwide across this whole nation, no matter what disaster it is, it's the holding hands and grasping the hearts and hands of other churches that has really made the difference. And I feel like that's the whole point of this conversation, of this network, to kind of bridge that gap and to stand in the gap with each other is just so important.
Yeah.
And I think out in the open and behind the scenes, like I see you, I'm exhausted. Are you exhausted? What's up? What do you need? And we're both doing this publicly. It's all important.
I'm learning because I'm a part of like a larger network than just my desert bubble, right? Is that these are some things that are happening in other places. So we focus and minister quite a bit to the homeless population. And so we partner with a few different organizations where we will house and feed people experiencing homelessness at our physical church location. And then the organization that we partner with, they have caseworkers assigned to these individuals or families to help them close the gap of ending their homelessness. So whether that be an identification, job training skills, setting up interviews, bus passes, like all the things that create the gap, those caseworkers are working to close that gap. And so while that's happening, because it's a process, while that's happening, these folks don't have to sleep on the street. They can sleep at our church, have a nice hot meal. And it's not just about the cot or the air mattress and the corn and the chicken. It's about the human interaction. It's about looking you in your eye and telling you that you're important, that your life matters, that I'm going to bring my kids, we're going to eat dinner together. Your kids are going to play with my kids. You're a part of our family. And it is just so like amazing when we get to do those type of things. So yeah, and so there's other churches involved, right? So they stay at our church for a week, then they move to another church, and there's this network of churches that are doing this amazing humanitarian hands and feet of Jesus work. And it's just one example of how the church comes together to be a team, right? Because everybody knows that team is an acronym, that together everybody achieves more.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
You had to do it every single week.
Yeah.
Right.
People would be
Exactly.
absolutely exhausted and fatigued. So the model you have is incredible. I mean, it's an incredible.
Yeah.
Well,
guys, thank you so much, Paula. We, our prayers and thoughts and love just go out to you. Erica, I'm so glad that you are so close and that you have just given all the love. But thank you so much for coming on Salty Talk. We appreciate you very, very much. And we will continue to pray for you and LA and all the fires. And just as you guys rebuild your community, We just be sure with Salty Talk that you like and love all the things with Salty Talk on Instagram and Facebook. We are here for you. We want to give you intentional conversations that will just spur you on and give you creative juices to continue your ministry, but also to connect you to other churches as well. Be sure to check out communityminister.network for more information about the network, for upcoming summits, for all details regarding the Community Minister Network. And guys, be sure and stay salty.